What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This here's Legitical Response. We cover political news. We keep you up to date and keep you informed with everything that the government does. Now, I've been talking bad about Republicans a lot. You know, I do identify as a conservative, but, you know, Republicans in Congress, they're just bad. You know, we have a handful of Republicans that are actually pretty good. And Republicans always seem to be behind the curve on just about everything that there is. I mean, look at the game that the Democrats played in 2020. You had ballot harvesting and universal mail-in voting, where they actually had Democrat activists going around to people's houses and saying, hey, have you filled out your mail-in ballot yet? You might want to go ahead and do so. Oh, by the way, Orange Man bad. And this is why we had an insane turnout of voters in the 2020 election. Donald Trump had more votes than he did the last time. For God's sakes, he had more votes than any incumbent president has ever had in United States history. And he still got beat by Joe Biden, who had 81 million votes, right? So we know that they did the ballot harvesting and they had universal mail-in voting and all this other stuff. So that was the game that they played in 2020, right? So now we're trying to figure out, you know, Republicans have finally figured that out and they're starting to get on their ground game. And now Republicans are doing ballot harvesting and we don't have universal mail-in voting like we did then. That was a pandemic. So that avenue of gaining votes is gone, I guess you could say. So we've been trying to figure out, okay, what game are the Democrats going to play this time, right? They always try to bend the rules. They always say stuff. They use the language of the left, like I always talk about. They say, oh, gender-affirming care. Oh, these are newcomers, right? All this BS. Right, so we've been trying to figure out what the hell they're going to do in 2024. Well, I've brought it up several times in the past, talking about why the hell is Joe Biden, you know, screeching about it, gnashing my damn teeth. Why the hell is Joe Biden, blah, 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 letting all these people come across the southern border? And I'm like, well, the census counts these people, and, you know, the census goes towards electoral votes and congressional seats, and they're constantly having to redistrict, and, you know, gerrymandering aside, you get a bunch of criminal aliens in the country. That's going to go toward the electoral count and the congressional district makeup. And we know that Democrats, hey, they're all sanctuary cities. Come one, come all, bring all your criminal aliens here. Right, so I've been trying to figure out why. Why is Biden intentionally trying to destroy the country with all this, right? And I've speculated before that that was the reason, that it was, you know, because when the census comes in, they're going to get a lot more electoral votes by sending all these criminal aliens to Democrat states, because red states don't want them, right? Because they're criminal aliens. They're not supposed to be here. They don't run around the regular migrants that are actually trying to come into this country the correct way and do everything through legal means. So that just makes people mad, right? You can't cut in line, essentially. That's not fair to the regular migrants who Democrats are supposed to be for. They're always talking about migrants and all this other BS, right? And it's like, come on now. You're letting millions of criminal aliens pour into the country, right? So now Republicans have finally figured that out, right? They finally figured out that, oh, the census counts these people, and, you know, all these sanctuary states are going to get more electoral votes, making it nigh on impossible for any Republican to ever win again, right? That's what California did. California has a lot of Republicans, but they have many more Democrats now because they opened their freaking state up. And, you know, I could get into a laundry list of reasons as to why California is blue and will always be blue. But check this out, y'all. Republicans renew push to exclude non-citizens from the census that helps determine political power. And oh God, I love the corporate press. I didn't read this whole story, so half of this story we're going to be figuring out, you know, as it goes, but I read the first few paragraphs, and yeah, they just pretty much lay everything out for you. Check this out. Some Republicans in Congress are pushing to require a citizenship question on the questionnaire for a once-a-decade census and exclude people who aren't citizens from the count that helps determine political power in the United States. The GOP-led House on Wednesday was expected to vote on the Equal Representation Act, which would eliminate non-citizens from the tally gathered during a census and used to decide how many House seats and Electoral College votes each state gets. The bill is unlikely to pass the Democratic-controlled Senate. The White House opposes it, and there are legal questions because the Constitution says all people should be counted during the apportionment process. Yeah. So they're outright telling you, Democrats don't want this. No. They figured out our game. This is how they get so much political power. This is why all the institutions are captured by the Democrats. This is why, the White House, of course, opposes this. Why else would he want 15 million criminal aliens to come into this country? It's not for them to not be counted on the census to give Democrats more power. No, of course they're going to oppose this. And the corporate press is outright telling you that. So this should piss off every single American. This is very underhanded. Of course, it doesn't technically go against the rules, right? Because that's how the census works. But allowing all the criminal aliens to come in certainly defies federal regulation on migration, right? You're not supposed to be able to come into this country illegally. You have to go through the legal channels to get in. And then they say, the Constitution says all people. Well, you know what? When writing up legislation, most people that write legislation don't assume that the Democrats are going to get the idea that, hey, if we allow X amount of million criminal aliens to come in, we'll get more political power, right? They don't think about that when they're writing up legislation, right? Especially considering the legislation was wrote up 150 years ago. The 14th Amendment, by the way, that's what they're talking about. Yeah, the Constitution says all people, but they most certainly mean all citizens. They don't mean criminal aliens that the Democrats have allowed to come in just to give them more political power. That's not how our founding fathers wanted our system to work. This is an outright ploy just for political power. We can see it, and the corporate press thinks they're doing the Democrats a favor, I guess, by telling you, oh, no, the Constitution says all people. But hang on, I'm sure they meant all citizens, not all people, because that would make no sense, because now that would mean that all the citizens of the world why doesn't the census count all these people and just give everybody power? That makes outright no sense. So saying all people, no, that's not how the Constitution works. The Constitution is for American citizens. It's not for the world citizens, by the way. It's not for all humans. It's for American humans. Just pisses me off, the Democrats, man. They're just so underhanded, and this is why I am no longer a Democrat. Yeah, I used to be a Democrat, by the way, for anybody that doesn't know that. Yeah, I used to be down with the Democrats and all that BS, and there's so much hypocrisy and there's so much BS that I had to get away from it. It's just too much for me. I'm a logic-based person. I tend to think along logical lines, and, cheating to win elections and get more political power is not very logical. Sure, it works, but it's very underhanded, and it's called cheating, by the way. And you break the rules by allowing all these criminal aliens to come in just to get more political power. No, I'm sorry. We've got to put this to a stop, y'all. But the proposal has set off alarms among redistricting experts, civil rights groups, and Democratic lawmakers as a reprise of efforts by the Trump administration to place limits that would dramatically alter the dynamics of the census, which plays a foundational role in the distribution of political power and federal funding. Still, opponents say the idea, once on the ideological fringe, has never gotten so far in the legislative process. I wonder why it was on the ideological fringe. Right, because nobody ever expected the Democrats to open the floodgates and allow millions of people to just pour across the border. Yeah, that's why it was on the fringe, because why? Why? Of course we're going to have a few here and there, but they never thought that somebody like Joe Biden would come in, open the floodgates, and allow, estimates are from, 8 to 15 million criminal aliens in this country currently. That's just since his presidency. That is not to mention all of the criminal aliens that came in under Donald Trump, all of the criminal aliens that came in under Barack Obama, for the past 20 years, I should say. Yeah, nobody ever thinks about that because they weren't thinking to use language to get around the law. Right? No. I'm sorry, this is just outright BS. It just pisses me off. Like I said, my mind gets jumbled with so many damn thoughts when I get pissed off like this, and sometimes I can't speak, say the things I need to that needs to be said, in other words. But in March, senators rejected similar Republican-sponsored language in an appropriations bill. That push was seen as an effort to bolster the Republicans' agenda on immigration before the November elections, with Donald Trump as the party's presumptive nominee against Democratic President Joe Biden. So once again, they're telling you that, Republicans are trying to level out the playing field here, and the Democrats are like, no, you can't do that. This is our only opportunity to cheat. Y'all done figured out ballot harvesting. There's no more universal mail-in ballots, so what else do we have? RFK Jr.? Yeah, right. The Democrats, they're just so aggravating because they're constantly trying to get around using logical inconsistencies to get around laws, right? Like saying, oh, voter ID is racist. You can't show an ID to vote? Huh? Yeah, that's racist. Why?
Do you think it suppresses the African American vote?
Definitely.
Tell us how.
Because they're less likely to have state IDs.
Minority voters are less likely to have the kinds of IDs that have been described or required.
These type of people don't live in areas with easy access to DMVs or other places where they can get identification.
You can always get IDs you do over the internet. Does that also make it difficult for black people in particular?
Yeah, you have to have access to the internet. You have to be able to pay an internet service provider for certain fees.
Do you think that's harder for black people to go online?
Well, I feel like they don't have the knowledge of how it works.
Because they think black people can't get access to IDs. How racist is that? That is the dumbest proposal, I think. The dumbest reason, the dumbest excuse for opposing a very logical, rational voter integrity law that anybody with a brain who is not trying to cheat should think, yeah, that's a good idea. We have to show IDs for all kinds of various things, right? Why not prove you're American citizen so we don't have criminal aliens voting in our elections, trying to sway the election, right? That's election interference. It's taking it closer to reality than it ever has been, said Steve Jost, a former Census Bureau official in the Obama and Clinton administrations. This part of the cohesive strategy in the GOP of getting every single possible advantage when the country is so closely divided. Huh? Well, yeah, of course, because the Democrats are cheating, trying to get more political power by breaking federal laws to allow criminal aliens to come into the country. Of course, I've already said that. But these people, they're just totally ignoring the fact that Joe Biden has opened the floodgates on the southern border. And they're like, oh, Republicans are trying to cheat. No. They're trying to level the playing field here because Democrats are cheating. Obviously. The 14th Amendment requires that congressional seats be distributed among the states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state. Besides helping allocated congressional seats and electoral college votes, census figures guide the distribution of $2.8 trillion in federal money. Another little issue, another tick on the box for the Democrats to take advantage of, if you will. Similar efforts failed before the last census in 2020 when the Supreme Court blocked the Trump administration from adding a censorship question to the census form. Following that defeat, the government under Trump tried to discern the citizenship status of every U.S. resident through administrative records and sought to exclude people who were in the U.S. illegally from the court used for appropriating congressional seats. Biden, in one of his first acts as president in January 2021, signed 2 orders revoking those Trump directives. And I wonder why. Right? Like, it's being laid out clearly for us here, folks. The Democrats are trying to cheat by allowing criminal aliens to come in this country so they can get more electoral power. Right? You can't really say it's more congressional seats. It's not. But it kind of is in a certain way, because we're locked in at 435 congressmen. But when they redistrict districts in this country because this area has more people, it takes power away from rural voters, because now you got to close in this district because they got more people. It just blows my mind the lengths that Democrats are willing to go to cheat. And I don't see why more Republicans aren't getting on board with this, aren't saying this is BS, this needs to stop, this is a clear play for more political power. How come you guys are cheating? But they're not doing that, are they? They're just trying to write up some legislation to get around that, instead of coming outright, accusing them of what they're doing, because they are doing it, they admit they're doing it, and then claiming, oh, the Constitution says we got to count everybody. No. Clearly, the Constitution means U.S. citizens. It doesn't mean everybody in the world, because if it means criminal aliens as well, why not include the entire population of the entire world? Huh? Let's logically work that one out, right? Like, how can you discern, oh, because they're not here? Well, those people aren't supposed to be here. So what do you have to say about that, Democrats? Nothing. Crickets. That's all you'll ever hear. Anytime you give some pushback to that, oh, wait, now I'm a racist. I'm a bigot for saying that, because I don't want criminal aliens to get counted on the census, because it goes and gives the Democrats more power, because the Democrats are the ones who have the sanctuary cities and the sanctuary states, and bring all your criminal aliens here so they can be counted on the census, so we can get more electoral college votes, and we can redistrict our congressional maps and make everything just work out just peachy. During a House Committee's rule hearing Monday, Rep. Michael Burgess said including non-citizens in the nation's head count skews representation away from American citizens and is tied to Biden's border crisis, because it helps places with large numbers of people who aren't citizens. Localities sympathetic to the president's agenda are poised to directly benefit, Burgess said. According to critics, the citizenship question was inspired by the late Republican redistricting expert Tom Hofeller. He had written that using citizen voting age population instead of the total population for the purpose of redrawing of congressional and legislative districts could be advantageous to Republicans and non-Hispanic whites. And it would be absolutely fair, right? Because Republicans make up the majority of the U.S. population. That's why Democrats call it cheating on our part, and that's why Democrats are trying to get as many criminal aliens in this country as they can to level the playing field, if you will, right? But that is cheating to do so. That is like trying to put 7 people on a basketball court on one team versus 5. Yeah, you can't do that, by the way. That is called cheating. Now, I'm not going to be totally biased with this. Of course, I know that, sure, that does give Republicans an advantage. But you know what? If the makeup of the country is mostly Republicans, then sure, that gives Republicans an advantage, because that makes up the majority of the population. So technically, it's not giving them an advantage. It's just making everything equal how it's supposed to be. Republican supporters of the legislation contended counting people who are in the U.S. illegally helps Democrats, right? Underhandedly, by the way. Knowing how many people who aren't citizens in the U.S. is the best way to obtain accurate information, Rep. Andy Biggs said in the hearing. If Trump becomes president, his administration could take steps to add a citizenship question without making the procedural mistakes cited by the Supreme Court in its 2019 ruling, said Jeffrey Weiss, a redistricting expert. And hopefully Trump does do that when he gets back in office. This is really a replay of the fight that Trump started, Weiss said. they have more time should he win in November to avoid the mistakes and go through a much more deliberative census planning process. The Biden administration says the GOP bill would increase the cost of conducting the census, make it more difficult to obtain accurate information, and violate the 14th Amendment. No, I'm sorry, it wouldn't violate the 14th Amendment. And please explain how it would cost that much more to add a single question onto the census. Please explain that one. When you are so willing and want to, and oh, by the way, you're a Putin propagandist if you don't want to send $60 freaking billion to fund a foreign war, and you're going to gripe about adding a question to a census. Yeah, come on, get off of that and shut your mouth, Joe Biden. Results from a Census Bureau simulation last year indicated a significant number of non-citizens were missed in the 2020 census. Some civil rights groups said that was evidence that the Trump administration's citizenship question push contributed to an undercount for some radical and ethnic minorities. Right? But it also, at the same time, corporate press, you're forgetting to mention that it also went toward a lot of criminal aliens. So that means a lot of non-U.S. citizens were counted, right? Giving more redistricting power to Democrats because all those criminal aliens reside in Democrat districts. So what in the hell are they talking about? Yeah, they just conveniently leave that fact out, right? Like, come on, let's use some logic. Let's be fair. Let's be honest. If you want to change the Constitution, you have to amend it, said Rep. Jamie Raskin, the biggest liar, by the way. You can't just squint really hard to see what you want to see. Yeah, that's a valid point. It really is. The Constitution says all people. So, according to Jamie Raskin, what we need to do is we need to count the entire world's population on the census. It really blows my mind the lengths Democrats are willing to go to just to get more political power, as if they don't already have enough, right? As if they don't already damage the country with their ridiculous policies and their ridiculous views and their ridiculous attitudes when it comes to legislation and, financial policy, outright, because look where we're at right now in this country. Yeah, Democrat policy has tanked the U.S. The economy's down. Everything's down. We know that. Everything's more expensive. Gas prices are up. Grocery prices are up. Electricity bills are high. Rent has went through the freaking roof. Car prices. The housing market. By God, Gen Z can't buy houses, y'all. And they're giving Gen Z's inheritance away to criminal aliens because they're giving them free housing and debit cards with millions of dollars on it. Now, I know that was a bit hyperbolic. I meant to say hundreds of dollars on it. Sometimes I get a little bit hyperbolic, y'all, but y'all got to bear with me on that. But this just proves outright that the Democrats, they don't care about laws. They don't care about anything that has to do with this country. Once again, if you're still here, share this video with anybody and everybody, because everybody needs to know this. Everybody needs to know exactly what the Democrats plan to cheat, to win elections. Of course, this is a long game they're playing here. Because the next census isn't going to come up until 2030. So, but even still, this is the game that they play to try to get more political power, right? Once again, we saw it in California. California is a forever Democrat state now, for at least for a long time, as long as they are willing to take on as many criminal aliens as they can. They will forever be a Democrat state. And this is just underhanded as hell. It's cheating, if you will. And they shouldn't be able to do this. All because the Constitution says all people, right? No, I'm sorry, that doesn't work. We know they meant U.S. citizens. Why the hell would the forefathers or anybody writing up legislation in this country write up legislation that would consider outsiders, non-U.S. citizens? Right? What the hell does U.S. policy have to do with non-citizens? Like I said, by that logic, we should count the entire world's population. It makes no logical sense, but Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. Do y'all see it for what it is, the Democrats trying to cheat? Or do y'all think that, yeah, we should count criminal aliens, and by that logic, we should count the entire world's population? Let me know what you think about all this down in the comment section. That's all I got for this one. Hey, don't forget to hit that like button on your way out the door. And y'all try to have a good day and stay legitical. Peace.